Any challenge whatsoever which is operational in nature should be solved by consumers. And I think that consumer closeness has brought us to survive and be still relevant after a decade.
Today, for brands getting in, I think they need to keep in mind if they are seeing that clear traction, they must understand that it's not only the metro and urban markets, but also the next tier cities will also be important.
Brands cannot be me too. And hence, they should have their own identity, which is distinct, which is differentiated.
Forbes and DTDC, behind India's D2C revolution.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind India's D2C Revolution. This is Forbes India and DTDC present Behind India's D2C Revolution. India's new age consumer brands are not just competing within categories. Many are now creating entirely new ones. And in doing so, they're reshaping how younger consumers discover, experience, and connect with products. Every episode in this series explores the founders behind these shifts and the operating decisions that helped them scale. Joining in today is Abhishek Chakraborty. He's the CEO of DTDC and works closely with many emerging D2C brands as they expand across markets, respond to the changing demand patterns, and build for long-term growth. We also have Tarun Sharma. He's the co-founder and CEO of PEP Group, the holding company behind mCaffeine and Hyphen brands that have built a strong connect with young, digitally native consumers and are shaping the new age personal care category in India. Together, we will explore category creation, youth-driven consumption, and how sharp ideas turn into scalable businesses in India's evolving D2C ecosystem. So let's get straight to it. Thank you for being with us, gentlemen. And Tarun, I'm going to start with you first because the beauty and the personal care market in India is already fairly crowded. What made you so confident that you would be able to build a name for yourself, and how did it pan out?
So, yes, beauty and personal care is fairly crowded. And when we started, we had close to about 7,200 brands listed on Amazon. Now it's about almost 75,000. So it's crazily crowded. But we believe that the consumers are changing. Consumers are changing for good because the consumers of yesterday doesn't want the brand of tomorrow, and at the same time, consumers of tomorrow are fairly shying away from maybe trying the brands of yesterday. So when the consumer shift happens in any economy, that also allows the new set of supply of brands to come in. And India in general is a very brand starved country if you look at it. Our consumers are divided into tiers, our consumers are divided into socio-economic sectors, millennials, Gen Zs, etc., etc. We were very confident of the fact that with the change in consumers and change in landscape of how the brands will get built, the millennial consumers and the Gen Z consumers would definitely want brands where they can resonate more.
Absolutely. It's very interesting that you spoke about the changing consumer trends. And Abhishek, let me get in your take. A very dominant category, beauty and personal care. But I wanted to get in your take as to how you think brands can successfully establish themselves within this D2C space.
See, as Tarun said, with competition being so high, what you go after, how you go after that category, I think plays a very important role. At the end of the day, a great, fantastic product will always be a big necessity. But the understanding that brands now have about their target audiences, I think that has really, really matured. Given the size of India's demographic dividend, the way different categories are emerging, as Tarun pointed out, going after that niche and going after it meaningfully, I think makes a lot of difference. And that's how brands are choosing to position themselves. And I think what's good is that it's not just that you're selling because you're trying to position yourself just as a new fad or the next big thing. It's actually something meaningful, something rooted, and something that actually is making a difference. So I think that positioning, the targeting, and then building a brand around it, I think that has been the key to success and will continue to be the reason.
Absolutely. And your product is at the end of the day king. But like you said, embracing your target audience is equally important. So, Tarun, everyone talks about, how important it is to have a sharply defined identity.
Yep.
But with this large diaspora in India that we're dealing with, how important do you think it is?
As a brand, you need to be really, really very clear on what are you standing up for. Are you standing up for the derma led tangent on which you want to build in? So brand identity is a function of the promise or the proposition you're trying to build, and we believe that's the first step the founders needs to kind of crack, that whether if I'm building a promise and if I'm kind of taking a promise to the consumer, do they really need it, and is it large enough, and is it deep enough for me to continue to kind of invest my energies and resources? If the answer is yes, I believe the sharp brand identity kind of helps killing the competition faster, and hence you need to continue to make it sharper as you scale. And but it is of paramount of importance for brands to be brands cannot be me too, and hence they should have their own identity which is distinct, which is differentiated, and hence if you're on a shelf, your identity should be able to kind of let people see through you and pick you, and same goes for online as well.
If I could pose the same question to you, brand identity, do you believe that it can continue to grow? Or do you believe that, diversity can actually allow a lot of niche ideas to grow into larger markets, especially in India?
See, I think, as Tarun said, the core identity needs to be quite clear, and that sharpness that gets defined in that core identity is the starting point. It's what your consumers will associate it with you first. Like even let's say in logistics category for DTDC, the fact that we were the go-to company that any Indian could trust upon to send a parcel from point A to point B still continues to remain our greatest moat, our greatest reason to be. But with that, the fact that we've expanded into various categories such as B2C for the D2C companies, cross-border, international, now rapid commerce, all of it still stems from the fact that if we stop providing the quality and the good features in the core product, I don't think any of those new things will be taken. So diversity allows you to then expand yourself, go into adjacencies, create new markets, but your core identity where you started from and resonating with that in your new offerings as well is very important. Certainly in a category such as beauty and personal care for sure, because where once upon a time it was either only the international FMCGs or the traditional Indian FMCGs who used to dominate. From there, for new brands such as mCaffeine and Hyphen to stand out and create that moat for themselves, I think it's amazing.
So, Tarun, taking off from that, the identity is very clear that there is caffeine. I just wanted to understand, does that restrict you in a way in terms of products? But were you very clear? Did you face any challenges initially in terms of perception, perhaps?
So India has always been an ingredient first country, while if you go to west, it's very concoction or solution based culture, or the solutions which or the brands which have been created. So we were fairly confident of taking the ingredient first route. The question was, is this ingredient too narrow? And as a starting point, the question was, I mean, caffeine has not been done before, so are we taking a big bold bet? But physiologically, caffeine is a great ingredient, so hence we were very confident of the fact that physiologically this works. Psychologically, you are building it for millennials, and for millennials maybe the ingredients of yesterday doesn't work, or they would need ingredients which they relate most to. Caffeine is at the top of the food chain from that perspective, and hence we believe we might be on a path where things might land, and one thing led to other. I think consumers have accepted as well, but we keep on expanding our caffeine portfolio out of coffee as well, and it has fairly reached to a level where we might be the largest caffeine based beauty brand in the world.
Abhishek, when new categories emerge, we tend to see that demand does tend to build, but it's a little bit uneven. So I just want to understand from a logistics lens, how should brands plan availability earlier? Can micro fulfillment models maybe help?
I think the patterns are changing with the way consumers are using those products, right? I think the emergence of the Bharat story and how consumers across the country are now picking on trends, because if something becomes popular in the cities, you have a reel coming out about that, the brand starts talking about it, and suddenly someone in a remote village would say, why should I not have that? Because the price point is no longer discouraging. And I think Indian brands such as mCaffeine have ensured they've not tried to premiumize only on the basis of price. They've actually created great product, great ingredient, but now that means its desire is spread all over. So I think keeping that in mind today for brands getting in, I think they need to keep in mind, if they are seeing that clear traction, they must understand that it's not only the metro and urban markets, but also the next tier cities will also be important. We as logistics companies try to ensure that brands, depending on that direction that they're taking, can we provide them that flexibility? So yes, you're right that the new fulfillment strategies, including micro fulfillment, are now designed that if you want to go deep into cities, yes, but the same fulfillment can allow you to also reach out to the tier 2, tier 3 cities of the same state.
Yeah.
And that flexibility should allow your brand to continue to scale as this new demand is emerging.
So, Tarun, tell us a little bit more about some of the earlier challenges that you faced, how you overcame them, especially when you started the business.
I think what from day one we ensured was that maybe consumer closeness might be the only answer to any problem we would have, right? Whether it's product, marketing, technology, are we servicing them well, etc., right? So from day one, one mantra which me and my partner Vaishali follows is that at any point of time, the company and the founders needs to be extremely paranoid about the consumer closeness, and we kind of took that paranoia slightly more far. For till about 120 crores of scale for good 5 6 years of our existence, the number, the customer care number on the pack, if you buy mCaffeine product back then, the customer care number on the pack was my personal phone number. Your core query would be of the product, which will reach directly to me, and hence we'll keep on kind of innovating. And then obviously me and Vaishali including some of the team members, we would still speak to at least 3,000 consumers a month. Any challenge whatsoever which is operational in nature should be solved by consumers, and I think that consumer closeness has brought us to survive and be still relevant after a decade of building these brands.
Abhishek, it's very interesting as well with your journey. I mean, today we're talking about AI and the use of technology, but back then things were a lot simpler. So, can you tell us a little bit more about how DTDC has actually evolved, the kind of shifts that we've seen in consumer behavior, how you've adapted to the e commerce boom as well, and what the journey's been like for the company?
For us, it began with a very simple choice at a very early stage because when we entered the business or in this industry, and we knew that to build a business profitably, it was not possible for us to do the same way that everyone else did. And if you look at any logistics company in the world, most of them, they would control everything. They would take care of all the back end, front end. For us, we made that very critical choice that while the core part of our network we would control, but our first mile, last mile, the face of our brand would be our channel partners, our exclusive people, entrepreneurs who would go out there and be with our consumers. Illuminating lesson that we always have learned is entrepreneurs are great problem solvers. And entrepreneurs, the way they hold on to consumers is unbelievable. Whether they understand sophisticated language or not, they understand the pain point of consumers. And our partners are our greatest source. Like in Tarun's case, hearing your partners, talking to your consumers, getting that real feedback, that was always the key. And thus, when we shifted from just being a courier company to getting into larger parts of logistics, into the international business, or indeed the cross-border or the e-commerce, domestic e-commerce business, at every stage, that feedback, that understanding of the consumer pulse, and therefore not being afraid of the tough choices that we made, because rather than relying on data and research and what quote-unquote consultants would tell you, the on-ground grassroots level feedback and backing that with your instinct is something that has repeatedly given us success. So yeah, I would say, those initial days were crazy, but every time that touch and connect with consumers and believing in your people, I think is a very, very important ingredient of any founder trying to build a long-lasting business.
Tarun, I'm sure over the years there have been multiple operational decisions that you've made, but are there any standout operational decisions that were made that you believe has defined the brand's long-term success?
I think bunch of decisions from investing in product. We were the first of those few D2C brands who said that we will do an in-house R&D. Otherwise, you can go to a manufacturer and kind of do a shop and deploy kind of a model. We're working on an integrated supply chain where we work with our manufacturing partners very in a more integrated way, where we don't treat them as third-party manufacturers. It's more like a very integrated supply chain. But one of the biggest decisions for us so far in the last 10 years is we from day one said that we will invest really heavily on our D2C channel, which is a direct to consumer, which is our app, which is our website in both these brands. And the the genesis of that strategy or decision was that we would really want to be very, very close to the consumers.
Yeah.
So when consumers search on our platform, when consumer come and spend 2.5 minutes on our website and doesn't buy, it keeps on giving the institution humongous amount of data on consumer behavior. And at the end of the day, people like us survived because there was a change in consumer behavior, and hence people might like us can also be disrupted when the change of behavior will work against us. So just to be relevant for decades and decades to come, we will have to be close to the consumer. I think that is one of the biggest decisions which is turning out in our favor.
Clearly stood you in good stead. And Abhishek, you also keep, stressing upon the fact that you went to the grassroots, your partners were very important. But how were you able to actually distinguish those players who were in it for the long run, the ones that would actually survive versus those who were just chasing short-term scale?
So I guess when you work in this category, especially when you're serving D2C brands, what you realize is that the founder is a very critical cog in this wheel. In fact, of course, he's the creator of that business. But his or her mindset and how he or she looks at scaling up and growing is very important. But within that, nuances can emerge, and that you only get to know when you work with those brand owners very closely. For example, how much we value today packaging and the quality of it, and what happens to it, depending on what's the product inside of it, is insights that were provided to us by those D2C founders. A lot of gaps that we had in our otherwise more B2B oriented network, which was not doing a great job in the initial years for the B2C business, is something the founders kind of tell you, because they see the end-to-end story. So over a period of time, for us, it became very clear that brands and businesses that were very focused on that consumer experience, they actually wanted to work with us as partners and not as vendors and service providers. And they were weaving us as supply chain players into that customer journey and story, giving us feedback, allowing us to converse with their end consignees or consumers, and also helping or working with us to give that feedback both ways. I think that's when you know that these are the kind of players that you want to work with, which is why one of the big decisions we took was, instead of working with large marketplaces, which will never share with you all the information and always keep an iron curtain or whatever, an information curtain, so to
Yeah.
speak. D2C brands are far more transparent, far more open. They know that they rely upon you, but they also make it very clear that we've got to raise our game. And therefore, we are very proud of the fact that the entirety of our e-commerce business today is completely built only with D2C brands.
Tarun, let's talk about building for the rest of the globe. And I was speaking to one founder who said that you need to build in India or build in Bharat, but build it that it's good enough to be for the rest of the world. How important is it to cater to the global markets? Are we aping what's happening globally, or do we very much have our own identity? What about you at mCaffeine?
I think across beauty and personal care, we are very inspired by what's happening in West, and especially Korea, right? Korea is like 20 years ahead when it comes to the quality of formulations and the quality of innovations. So definitely the consumers in India, when it comes to beauty and personal care, are very much influenced by the fact what's happening outside, right? So definitely the brands also tend to kind of ride on those influence points. Uh, does it necessarily mean we are building for the globe? I don't think so. From at least from PEP Group's perspective, we believe India is immensely large to build at least $1 billion kind of a revenue scale in India from bunch of categories, because India 5 years back, or let's say if you just look at beauty and personal care data, close to about 20,000 crore sales. I mean, 20,000 crore worth of product being used by Indians in a year by the brands which were not there 10 years back. We are here to serve the consumers. If the consumer wants a certain kind of product, we are there to solve for it. As a PEP group, we are very, very focused on India, and we'll continue to kind of launch more categories and more brands to win more market share in the country.
Okay, so India is where it's at. We can take inspiration from the globe, but you're focused right here. But I'm sure, Abhishek, there are a number of companies. I mean, because D2DC is working with other D2C brands as well that are looking at cross-border solutions. But what do you believe is important for them to actually get right before they actually think about scaling internationally?
The demand for Indian products is rising. India as an exporter is now a serious thing. The government has obviously given all the push that it needed to give. The global shakedown of tariffs and trades has actually probably opened up the fact that there is a need for alternate solutions. So I think for Indian brands, depending on their category, um, first winning your Indian market is important. But at some point in time, when you see that the demand can be scaled, when you're finding, say, similar friendly markets, for example, our neighbors immediately, starting to think about the solutions, the capabilities that you need to do cross-border is very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, a question for both of you. How are you leveraging AI? I'm sure it's making the business a lot more efficient. What are you doing now?
I think across the board, we have started kind of adopting AI. Um, Customer support, very obvious use cases. The use of AI, whether it is front facing to kind of solve for customer queries or solving for the inefficiencies in the processing of the company, because companies like us are inherently inefficient. We are moving so fast that we leave some bit here and there. So that is where we are using AI. Third piece is that we are almost certain that in a couple of years, as the pace of AI will also change, the entire recurring work which keeps on happening in the companies will keep on getting automated. So we might continue to kind of implement this technology and upskill our people to do more stuff using this.
What about you, Abhishek?
Yeah, I've been picking up from where Tarun spoke. Apart from customer service, which is the direct contact centers and all, where of course we've invested a lot. We've got our own virtual assistant. We call it DTDC, Interactive Virtual Assistant Diva, and that has really helped us respond to queries at a massive scale. Last year alone, we had more than 700,000 queries that came to us, out of which 82% was taken care by the assistant. It did not even require any human being to come into the picture.
All right, let's get down to the rapid fire. Tarun, disrupt or outlast? Which matters more?
Outlast by disrupting.
I like it.
Good one.
Okay. Founder instinct or data? What drives your decisions more?
Data.
And one message to your competitors.
Let's build it together.
Okay. All right, Abhishek, ready?
Yep.
One decision that you took that went against the traditional wisdom that worked out.
Well, right at the outset, that you can't work with partners to create success. They absolutely can, provided the goals are clear and you work with them together.
In moments of uncertainty, do you rely on people or processes?
See, I think people are the heart and soul of a business like ours. But provided that over a period of time you're making them very process oriented,
Yeah.
it obviously helps. But yes, the judgment calls are made by people, and that you need to have great people with you.
Okay. If you one big shift that you're seeing in the consumption space.
The fact that trends are getting translated into traction much faster. Hype is becoming reality, and yes, what India loves, Bharat is loving it and loving it even faster at times.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in. It's really been eye-opening to decode how the D2C space in beauty and personal care is working and how logistics plays a huge role. So thank you all for watching Forbes India and DTDC present Behind India's D2C Revolution. Do stay tuned for more insights from the founders and innovators who are redefining India's D2C landscape. Thanks for watching.
Forbes and DTDC. Behind India's D2C revolution.